It almost never happens while you're still there. In the moment, you're functional, responsive, present enough. You say the right things, nod in the right places, keep the conversation moving. You might even appear calm, grounded, socially fluent. But the real impact begins after. After the door closes, after the message is sent, after the room goes quiet again. That's when your body tightens, not dramatically, but subtly, like a muscle that never fully relaxes. Your mind circles back, replaying fragments that felt insignificant seconds ago. A pause that lasted too long. A sentence that could have landed differently. A look you can't quite interpret, but can't ignore either. You're not searching for drama. You're searching for certainty. The interaction is over, but your nervous system doesn't register that yet. It stays alert, scanning backward for errors, as if understanding after the fact could somehow rewrite the outcome. This doesn't feel like anxiety. It feels like responsibility. A quiet, internal pressure that says, you should have known. You should have adjusted. You should have seen it coming. So you keep thinking, not because you want to, but because stopping feels unsafe. This habit didn't come from overthinking personalities or excessive self-focus. It came from learning, early on, that emotional outcomes weren't stable. At some point in your life, interactions carried weight beyond words. Small shifts mattered. Tone mattered. Timing mattered. What you said, or didn't say, could change the emotional climate of a room. Maybe approval felt conditional. Maybe moods were unpredictable. Maybe silence carried meaning you had to decode quickly. So your mind stepped in. It learned to analyze before reacting, to replay moments afterward, to dissect conversations in search of clarity. Not for perfection, but for safety. If you could understand what went wrong, maybe next time you could prevent it. Thinking became a form of vigilance. Not loud vigilance, not panic, but a quiet, constant mental readiness. Always reviewing, always recalibrating, always preparing for the next interaction as if it required precision. Over time, this process became automatic. You didn't choose to overthink. You learned to rely on it. It felt like maturity, emotional intelligence, awareness. But beneath it was something else. A nervous system that never fully trusted that connection would hold without effort. A belief that relationships required management, not presence. A sense that being misunderstood wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. So the mind kept working long after the moment passed. Not to torture you, to protect you. Over time, overthinking stops feeling like a reaction and starts feeling like a permanent state. The interaction ends, but the mind doesn't stand down. It keeps circling, pulling apart details, testing interpretations, rehearsing alternative versions of what should have happened. Not because there is pleasure in the process, but because there is relief in staying alert. Your body learns that calm is temporary. So it stays slightly braced, shoulders tight without obvious tension, breath shallow but controlled. A sense of being on, even in quiet moments. The mind fills the space because silence feels too open, too unguarded. This is where people misunderstand the pattern. They assume overthinking comes from insecurity or low self-esteem. In reality, it often comes from hyper-responsibility, the belief that emotional outcomes depend on your accuracy, your timing, your restraint. If something goes wrong, the assumption is internal, I missed something. If connection feels off, the mind searches for personal error. This creates a loop where self-monitoring replaces self-trust. Instead of feeling into moments, you observe yourself inside them. Instead of being present, you become analytical. Life is no longer lived directly, it is processed. And the more you process, the less grounded you feel. Eventually, this constant internal review changes how you relate, not just to others, but to yourself. You become cautious with expression. Opinions are softened before they're shared. Emotions are delayed until they feel justified enough to survive scrutiny. Spontaneity starts to feel irresponsible rather than alive. Connection begins to feel like something that must be managed. You might be socially capable, even highly perceptive. People may describe you as thoughtful, emotionally intelligent, easy to talk to. What they don't see is the cost of that perception. Every interaction leaves residue. A subtle exhaustion settles in, not physical, but cognitive. Your mind is always one step ahead or one step behind the moment, rarely resting fully inside it. Over time, the fear evolves. It's no longer just about being liked or accepted. It becomes about being misunderstood, about being seen inaccurately, about having your intentions misread and never corrected. So the mind keeps replaying, hoping that clarity will arrive retroactively, that if you think long enough, you'll finally feel settled. But clarity never comes from the past. The mind stays busy because the nervous system hasn't learned that moments can end without consequence. And so, life begins to feel heavier than it should, not because it is dramatic, but because it is constantly reviewed. There comes a moment when the thinking no longer feels useful. It doesn't arrive as insight. It arrives as fatigue, a deep, quiet tiredness that settles in after years of mental vigilance. The realization that no matter how thoroughly you replay a moment, certainty never arrives. The outcome never changes. Relief never lasts. The mind keeps working because it believes it has to. Because once it did. This is where the truth begins to surface, not intellectually, but somatically. The body knows first. The tension that never fully leaves. The shallow breath that follows you into stillness. The sense that rest requires permission you never quite receive. Overthinking wasn't created to perfect you. It was created to protect you. It learned to stay awake in environments where emotional consequences were unpredictable, where misunderstanding felt dangerous, where being unprepared cost connection, approval, or safety. Recognizing this doesn't erase the habit, but it softens the relationship to it. The mind is no longer an enemy. It's a guardian that never learned how to stand down. And once you see that, something loosens. Healing begins where control ends. Not through force, not through discipline, through permission. The permission to let moments remain incomplete. To allow conversations to finish without postmortems. To notice the urge to replay and choose not to follow it. This choice feels uncomfortable at first. The body resists. The nervous system reaches for the familiar. Review, analysis, rehearsal. It doesn't trust the quiet yet. So the practice is gentle. You let the thought pass without answering it. You allow uncertainty to exist without resolving it. You remind the body, slowly, that the moment has already ended. Safety stops being something you think your way into. It becomes something you feel your way toward. Over time, the mind quiets not because it's silenced, but because it's no longer needed in the same way. Presence replaces vigilance. Experience replaces review. You begin to live inside interactions instead of dissecting them afterward. And in that space, something shifts. You trust yourself again, not to be perfect, but to be resilient. Not to avoid misunderstanding, but to survive it. The world feels less sharp, less demanding, more forgiving. You stop bracing, and for the first time in a long while, moments are allowed to end without you carrying them home.